something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
Well, howdy, folks. Oh, hang on. That's Project Matilda. Being a bit loud. There you go. We are live on Project Matilda, in case you hadn't figured that out either, folks. ProjectMatilda.com is the website to go and see if you haven't been and joined. We'd love to have you join Project Matilda. Daniel, who's put Project Matilda together, has done an exceptional job. It's better than Facebook, and we just need a few more of you to join it. So pop over to Project Matilda and see what you can do. How are you, wonderful family? What a day we've had today. Where do I begin? Hello, Angelina. You were first in. Lovely to have you in. I'm sorry I was running a bit late tonight. It's because we've been working on the bus and there's a bit more to do than we thought. But anyway, we've got it done. Very quiet tonight, Angelina. Yeah, I would say that is probably because everybody thought I wasn't going to do a show, because I normally put it up half an hour or so before I get here. And yeah, at any rate, I was running a bit late, so my apologies. We might be a bit light on viewers first up. Hello, Paul. How are you, mate? Good to see you in. Brett, Wendy, lovely to have you in. And Timmy Wilson's in the house. Sunflower, God love you, wonderful woman. I hope you and Rick are well. And EH, nice to talk to you, or at least have you in the show. Andrew Smith, on Red Alerts in. J1, good to have you back in. Shelley, good to see you. Dusty's in too. So, hey, good to see you around. Most of the family's turning up. And, well, you can turn up. You can not turn up. It's your choice. You enjoy your night. Today, got the lights going. Yay! Absolutely wonderful. Today, got a front camera on the bus going. Yay! It's not like there's not enough cameras in the bus. If you've been anywhere near the bus, had a look at it, you'll see that there are a number of be careful, you're being filmed signs on the bus. That's because if you're within a certain range of the bus, you are being filmed. Bear that in mind. Whether I'm there or not, constantly you will be filmed. So now we've got a new one, which is pretty cute, I've got to say. Hard to spot. Got a nice dummy out the front too. So, yeah, it works out well. Thank you very much to Tony Alvarez, who has been my host here at Lake Oberon Estate. I keep going to call it a resort because that's pretty much what it's like. Absolutely magnificent place. But, however, we are going to have to leave tomorrow, sadly. But I have had such a wonderful time here with the Alvarez family. They have made me feel like one of their own. I've actually met a bit of the extended family as well. We had a very, very good event here with Ainsley Bullion and Cass and Mary Jane from Freedom Financial Solutions, FFS. And I've been stuck. Oh, stuck sounds like an awful word, but I've been here since. And we've been really doing a heap of work on the bus. We have been over it from top to bottom. Now, if you saw my little live earlier today, you'll understand the engine issues we've been suffering. And Tony has been under the motor all day. Oh, looks like I've locked up for some reason. It's a little weird. What's going on there? That's working. That's working. Let me see if I can just rejig my my screen here for a minute. I don't know if you're seeing me properly or not. My screen is locked up. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not it comes back to life. I'll keep going until such time as I'm not sure that it's not working at all. So, yeah, Tony was under the bus today, reattaching what turned out to be... Oh, no, here we go. Right, we'll try that instead. No background. You can see I do have a suit. It's there in the background. And the bed, I'm staying upstairs at the magnificent Lake Oberon Estate. I keep going to call it a resort, as I was saying before the bloody show give up on me. But it is an estate, and a truly beautiful estate, can I just say. Great facilities, great everything. So if you're looking for an event venue, why not consider Lake Oberon Estate? If you're looking for a conference venue, consider Lake Oberon Estate. If you are just looking for a weekend getaway with family and friends, come here. It's great. And Tony has just been, and his lovely wife, Julie, of course, have been just the most magnificent hosts. I can't tell you how grateful I am for Tony's input, particularly with the bus. He's put in 15, 20 hours on the bus since we've been here, I'd reckon. And now with our exhaust manifolds reattached, both of them, he reattached, or we went and got 17 new nuts to go on the 17 bolts that didn't have nuts on them. There are 20 bolts with nuts to hold on my exhaust manifolds. And we had one in one side and two on the other. So now we are fully bolted up. Look out. And you'd be amazed how quiet that motor is. We did manage to put a bit of a fix in for the exhaust gasket, which went really well. And now it's almost quiet. So got to be happy with that. Then Tony said, oh, well, what would you like for dinner? What would you like for dinner? Now, it's a bit hard for me to reach around and tell you and show you what he brought me for dinner. But there is pizza. There is a bowl of chips like this. And then he brought this bowl. Oh, food, folks. This family, no food. Now, this is some kind of, he did tell me the name. It's a Greek thing. It's donut, it's honey, it's other things. And, oh, my God, it's beautiful. It is just to die for. But look at the bowl of it he bought me. I've probably had more than two out of it. The pizza might be, I've had a couple of bits of pizza, a couple of them, handful of chips. So we'll see how we go. Don't think I'm going to get through much more. But, oh, God, the food at the Lake Oberon Estate, folks. You've got to get into it. Got to get into it. So having a bit of a glance through, see who's on, who's off, who's on. Rachel's throwing something up at me. Yes, I am feeling much better, Rachel. Thank you so much. I've seemed to have gotten over the toothache or the tooth abscess, I think is probably the best way of describing it. The night of this seminar, my gum above the tooth that's got the problem was at bursting point, literally like a pimple. Not very pleasant, but, bite down hard enough, things burst. They did. It did. I've been drowning myself in mouthwash, antibacterial mouthwash and anything else that I think that will help keep it clean, fix it up, and kill the bacteria in it. Seems to be doing all right at the moment. So hopefully I won't have to go and cry at a dentist anytime soon. Please, God. The bus is a wiring and mechanical mess. Well, no, as it turns out, it's not a wiring or mechanical mess. In fact, mechanically, according to some people we've had look at it, including Tony, the only issues with that motor were the fact that we didn't have enough exhaust manifold nuts holding it on. There was one other thing that we fixed, the breather, oil breather tube in the top of the motor. Now, this isn't an issue with the bus. This is an issue, I think, that dates back to the backfire that we had when on LPG and blew a lot of shit out of the motor. We might have blown it so hard that we popped a few of those nuts clean off, although we didn't see any stripping marks on the threads. So, I don't know, they might have just blown loose, got shook loose after that explosion and have just vibrated off. Because since that big bang, I have done over 10,000 kilometres. So, there's every chance that they vibrated loose after that big bang. As for the oil breather thing, that was blown out of the motor. We know that because we had to go and fish out the part that was still in the motor. But we did, and now there's a brass thing stuck in the motor where the plastic thing once was, and I doubt it's going to blow up. Bloody sure it's not going to blow up. One of the safest things I think that I've learned today about hydrogen is that it's not going to kill you, at least not by coming out through any exhaust gas holes. One of the big issues that we had with the bus today and discovered was exhaust gases. Now, it's melted those exhaust gases because the flanges weren't on, or the manifolds weren't on tight enough. Those gases were escaping into places they shouldn't have been and were melting things that aren't meant to be near heat, to a point where it turned in, one of my driving light cables turned into just a solid core of metal and melted rubber and bit. So pretty unattractive. We think we fixed all that now. That shouldn't be a problem. The motor itself, no issues with the motor itself, none. Mechanically, it is top notch. And I know that because the fella that we bought it from had done the vehicle up, and he was a diesel mechanic, owned a business, and he'd done the vehicle up to travel around Australia with his wife. And unfortunately, the poor bugger got cancer and couldn't make the big lap. So he had done all the work on it, and it's all top-line mechanical work on it. And I think my little LPG faux pas probably undid a bit of that work. However, today, thanks to Tony Alvarez and his mate Brian, we seem to have fixed most of that. So I'm looking forward to getting on the road tomorrow and being able to hear myself think, because the drive down from Brisbane, I got to tell you, was a bit loud. But anybody who rang me on the way down would understand that. They probably didn't hear much of what I had to say. I could hear them perfectly, but yeah, me, not so good. Okay, so the screen froze, but the audio was good. All right, well, that's weird. I had to reboot the screen for some reason and reboot everything. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Ball joints, top and bottom, are all good, Angie. Oh, you just replaced your ball joints on an 89 Holden. Yeah, can't beat an 89 Holden. Not too many computers in an 89 Holden. 89, that'd be about a VN, would it? I reckon it'd be close to a VN. They were the first of the computer cars. So got to be aware of computers and cars, because anything with a computer in it may not work terribly well in the not too distant future. But we will find out. Michelle Bradley, bentonite clay and coconut oil on the tooth? Is that what you're saying? All right, I might have to consider that somewhere down the track. Try the fruit and veg diet for a couple of weeks. Helps with bacteria and not growing from meat. Yeah, well, I haven't been eating much meat either, just between you, me, and the gatepost, Luke. Yeah, I haven't. Well, for a variety of reasons. It's hard to chew steak when you've got a really sore tooth. Steak is expensive, and I don't go and buy it, at least not very often. I think the last piece of steak I had was about 3 weeks ago, and I tried for the first time to cook it in an air fryer. Why the hell would I do that? Good question. We won't be doing it again. Probably left it cooking a little bit too long. It wasn't tough as boot leather, but it could have been better. Yeah, I would say, Brett, you're 100%. The LPG backfire is what did all that damage. I would agree. But now we seem to have got it back in place, and hoses are all connected. Everything seems to be working. And I even have a camera now in a new place. So I'm excited for that. That'll be very interesting. All right. Let me just see if there's much else in here. Oh, you use it as toothpaste. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. All right. Well, that might be something I should be trying, because I'm a big coconut fan, I've got to say. And the coconut and the honey and everything else that's in these little donutty things without the hole. My God. Sorry. All right. Shall we go and have a bit of a look? Yeah, the carnivore diet. Pardon me. I met a fella here yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, I think. He's on the carnivore diet. He's lost 33 kilos on the carnivore diet. And not in a short period. I mean, in a reasonable time frame. It just hasn't dropped off him, and, probably go back on real quick. This has been over what I would call a reasonable, if not reasonably fast time frame. He cannot speak highly enough of it. I've met, I don't know how many people on the carnivore diet. They all say the same thing about it, that it is great for weight loss. So, yes, my plan is to give the carnivore diet a go. That's really going to upset the vegan personal trainer in Melbourne, although she'll just shrug her shoulders and say, nah. Weight loss will follow. Thank you, Brett. Yes, I do think that is the great. Food grade peroxide for the tooth, that would work. I'm gathering you don't want me to put it on this steak, Angelina. That's could taste a little funny. Give the heart carbohydrates a miss. Yes, Paul, I'm trying very hard to do that, although tonight I am absolutely surrounded by carbohydrates. Pizza, chips, and these magnificent, whatever they are. I wish I could remember the name of them. Tony, if you're watching, come up and tell me what they are, will you? Hello, Kathy. Nice to have you in. I haven't seen you in for a while. Daniel, too, you're in. Well done. All right, let's have a bit of a chat about what's going on in the world, shall we? So I watched the horror of Westfield Bondi Junction unfold, like many of you did, a couple of days ago. I didn't become aware of it until very late in the afternoon, and obviously by that time Channel 7 had been on air for hours with it, and we're still going to keep going for hours more, many hours more. One of the things that you look for in a false flag is media involvement, and media involvement or military involvement with victims. Channel 7 also became, if you like, the lead media organisation on everything that happened at the Bondi Junction that day. We saw the same bit of video played over and over and over and over again. Now, this vision comes from people's mobile phones and that sort of stuff. But Westfield would have been full of security cameras. We're not seeing any extra vision. We're not seeing too much of the lead up to him coming in, going out and coming back in again. I have seen a little bit of street footage of him carrying a backpack before he walked into Bondi Junction. I'm not sure if that was the first or the second time. He certainly didn't have a backpack on him as he was seen wandering around the centre holding the knife. So, yeah, little. It could just be a time thing. It just, certain video time lapses, and I don't know the timing of when these videos were taken. So I'm not getting too sussed about that. I do get a bit sussed about this. That's a picture of this man who, by this stage, had already stabbed 6 people. What do you notice about him? Have a good look. I know it's a blurry picture. I'll give you another one to have a look at. What do you notice there? Nothing? Anything to think of? You see something there. All right, let's go back to the first one. Do you see any blood? Do you see any blood? If you just stabbed 6 people, one of them so badly in such an important place in the body that she bled out very, very quickly, as most victims were supposedly bleeding out very, very quickly. There is, with knife wounds, there is always blood spray. Always. And there is no blood on that man's hands. There is no blood on his legs, feet, shirt, clothes, shorts, nothing. There is not one drop of blood on the floor behind where this man has walked after that knife has been plunged into 6 people. No blood. No blood at all. There is a little bit of blood there, and I'd say a little bit of blood. Now, I don't know Westfield Shopping Centre. For all I know, they didn't make a flat floor. It's not flat, because that blood would not run like it has if the ground was flat. I'm also a little confused because I have seen footage where that gentleman was against the wall, pretty much where that police officer's right leg is, and he seems to have been dragged back out from the wall to this position, which doesn't quite match the blood. Also, 2 shots sent a mass. If you shoot somebody in the heart, it stops beating and the blood does not pump. You'll get a little bit of blood from the entry wound, but not much else. If you get shot somewhere else and you are bleeding, your heart is still pumping. It is pumping that blood out of you at a pretty solid rate, particularly if you've been hit in an artery, as many of these victims were. Okay, well, that's what they're saying. The victims were struck in very, very serious areas of their body, and particularly the mother of the 9-month-old baby. Obviously, she was struck in a catastrophic fashion. And by the sounds of it, the small baby is very lucky to be alive. I heard tonight she's in a stable condition, but still not out of danger. So fingers crossed for her that comes through. Now, media. Media were all over this for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, but Channel 9 didn't decide to go full live for 24 hours or 36 hours. They did do a bit, but Channel 7 took the lead on the mainstream media narrative. The question I have is, within minutes, there were 50 ambulances outside, or 40 ambulances outside Bondi Junction, Westfield. How? Sydney's suffering from ambulance ramping problems. There are so many people keeling over unexpectedly that the hospitals can't keep up. People are sitting in ambulances, dying in ambulances, waiting hours to get out of ambulances and get into a hospital bed. And yet, on Saturday, no problem. 50 ambulances, 40 ambulances, within minutes. Within minutes. Okay, Waverley Police Station's up the road. Can understand how a lot of police got there fairly quickly, but not 40 ambulances. Don't understand how 40 ambulances could get there that quickly, unless they were prepared. I'd be very interested in learning how many vacant shops there are in Westfield at the moment. I'd be interested in learning whether or not in the last couple of weeks anybody has been into those vacant shops, probably under the guise of fit out to put new people in them or a shop refitting. When a false flag occurs, particularly in a shopping centre or something like this, it is usual for those perpetrating this crime to set up a forward operating base. And that is usually inside the venue or very, very close to the venue that they're operating or putting the operation into. They use those rooms as staging rooms. They have makeup artists where they make up the actors, the trauma actors that you see in these fake or false flag events. Those actors get made up and can be easily slipped out of a door into a crowd in a panic. These actors play various different roles. Some will be screaming bystanders. Some will be active heroes. Some will be inactive heroes. It's an interesting, very interesting little game that they play when they do these sorts of operations. Do people die? Yes, they do. The guy with the knife, I'm pretty confident, is dead. I would say that the others are quite possibly dead as well. What interests me is, once again, media involvement with the victims. It began with the mother, news of the mother and her name being released to certain media organisations who were live at the time. Now, they didn't release her name at the time, but it turned out that on Sky News, the police reporter on Sky News, who was with senior police at the races when this happened, and she left with them, knowing that something big was going on. Turns out that she knew the young mother that succumbed to her injuries. So there we had the first emotive story. Then Sunday morning, Matt Doran from Sunrise, Channel 7 Sunrise, couldn't come in and be part of the show, nor could the guy who does the weather, what's his name? James Tobin. He couldn't come in either because they both knew one of the victims very well. What you look for in false flags is media involvement, media association. Someone knows a victim, right? Because it brings the emotive story back out. Channel 7 ran that whole emotive, anxious or anxiety building program for near on 36 hours. They got the narrative drilled into everyone. And because they were the lead media on it, every other media agency would have been following what they were doing. That doesn't mean they're reporting exactly what they're reporting, but it gives them the narrative, if you like. I personally believe that it wouldn't really matter whether it was 7 or 9 that controlled the media or did the mainstream media, blitz of 36 hours. It certainly would never be Channel 10. Why? Channel 10 don't have the people or the talent or the ability or the skills, in my opinion. They don't have the equipment. They don't have crews they can send out all over the place. And, Channel 10 Sydney might be able to send 4, what we call ENG, electronic news gathering crews out. They might be able to send 4 out if they're lucky. So there's 4 hospitals. I think the victims went to 6 or 7 different hospitals around Sydney. So they couldn't cover all of them and have somebody at Bondi Junction and everywhere. They just don't have the staff. They've got no money. So you can write 10 out of it completely. They're going to be playing catch up. But 9 and 7 in particular, are, I would suggest, heavily involved in all of this. Now, why would you say that? Well, they have to have a media involvement. They have to have a mainstream media buy-in. They have to have emotional buy-in from mainstream media people that you love. So let's say, for instance, that my daughter was there and she was stabbed. God help me. Don't ever let that happen, Lord. But if I was to tell you the story of that happening here, it would have an emotional effect on you because, Laura, you've tied in with her at some stage. That's what they try and get you to do through their broadcasts, tie in on an emotional level and just accept everything you are being told. I don't do that. I don't accept a lot of what they've said. And this, to me, looks like a test, a trial for something possibly much bigger. It's interesting that knives have been used because knives is more a ISIS, Muslim kind of thing. There has been a ramping up of Muslim tensions, if you like, through the Middle East and talk of jihad and whatnot again. So could this be leading towards another frenzied knife attack in another venue, in another city around Australia at some point that might be aimed at jihad or sold to us as jihad? What they're going to try and do is divide us, Muslims from Christians, from anybody else. That's what they're building now, division. Many normies will be sitting out there saying, oh, all right, well, I'd be very happy now to have metal detectors when I walk into every shopping centre, the size of Bondi Junction or anywhere near that size. Why? It would be stupidity. No belts, no studs in your boots, your wallets, everything. You're going to be stopped. You're going to be like going through the bloody airport to get into a shopping centre. You want to do that? I don't think so. It's not going to be a great time. So what else do we need to think about? Well, we need to think about the involvement of, well, there's no real military involvement at this stage that I can ascertain. But there are a number of interesting governmental moves, and this has clearly highlighted a mental health issue, which people outside of Queensland, I'm unsure of, the situation in your state. I suspect it will be similar to Queensland, but in Queensland, there are no more mental health institutions. There are no more places for people with severe mental health issues to go to be kept safe and given treatment. There used to be a number of them in Brisbane, around Ipswich. And I remember going past one, playing a round of golf around one day. And it was a high security unit. It was in an old building, but it backed onto a golf course. And I was playing down that hole one day, and you could hear the screams coming from inside the joint. And the yells and the rants and the everything else, people at windows. That's all ended years ago. They closed down those sorts of institutions, said that they were awful, and then left you nursing your mentally ill family member. Put them back into your house and said, oh, the psychiatrists will look after it now. Well, I can tell you from experience that when I was trying to get my daughter help after the trauma that she'd suffered, getting her into a psychiatrist was practically impossible. I managed to get her into a psychologist and then a clinical psychologist, but I think she is still on the waiting list for the psychiatrist, and now she's got no need for him. So thank God. The other thing about psychiatry is that you don't get too much help from the government with that. You've got to fund all that yourself. And psychiatrists, at least the ones we were talking to, were charging between $400 and $500 per session. It didn't mean an hour, and certainly no more than an hour, just per session. You're in there for 5 minutes or 50, it didn't matter. The other interesting thing about psychiatrists and psychiatry is that it is heavily related to MK Ultra. Now, this young man who was responsible for the heinous crimes that were committed in Bondi had been under the care of a psychiatrist since 2012, when he was taken out of a facility and given back to his parents. The psychiatrist has had great input and apparently was making great inroads to him, to a point where, as a lot of mental health patients do, they get to a point in their life where they've got a little bit of help and their life is going along okay and they're feeling pretty good and they're taking their meds and life is good. Then they get the feeling that it's going so good they don't really need to take the meds anymore. I'm cured. And that's when the shit starts to happen. When they go off their meds. And this is what happened with this bloke. He disappeared from Toowoomba, went to Brisbane. He had a travel pass for, one of the big coach companies, jumped on a coach, wound up in Sydney, has been living rough in Sydney for a few weeks. And this has happened. Nobody knows what triggered it. There has been some talk that he has wanted a girlfriend and hasn't been able to get a girlfriend for such a long time, yada, 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 yada. So that's why he targeted women. What I don't understand is why the men around those women didn't target him. I've seen a lot of men running out of Bondi Junction. A lot of men with their wives and their children. All right, I can understand you want to get your wives and children out of harm's way. But then turn around and go back. None of them did that. They ran just as fast as they could. Single men running as fast as they could. There was one bloke with a backpack who slipped over. He was in such a rush to get away from him, whereas the backpack would have been a foil for the knife if he had have walked forward. In fact, the very next person the bloke confronted or was walking towards turned around, raised his hands and looked at him while his wife and family were behind him. And our knife-wielding madman didn't give him a second glance, diverted away from him. He did not want to attack a man. He did not want a man to get close enough to him to disarm him. Where were the men? We did see a couple, the Bollard boys. Good stuff. That's all I can say about that. Controlled or not, good stuff. Men being men, protecting others, not running. I mean, it is Sydney. Probably expect most of the men to be running from something. It's hard to do in your high heels, isn't it, girls? But, I'm disgusted. There were thousands, tens of thousands, probably, at least over 10,000 people there. Very high percentage of them male, all of them running in the opposite direction. Weak. And, look, I probably shouldn't be too hard on them. I guess you make the decision you do at the time, given the available knowledge that you have. I just don't understand people running from things like that. I really don't. When you're hearing screams and you're hearing, a cacophony of horror and you run from it, you're weak, man. You're a weak man. That's my opinion. I understand if there was gunfire and all that, maybe not the wisest thing to run into, but you can still run into it and take some cover, all right? But this wasn't that. Most of the men had no idea what was going on at the time. They just ran. Like sheep. Like sheep. One runs past. Oh, one's running. I'll run. Two are running. Oh, shit, 20 better run. 20 are running, 100 will run. 100 run, another 1,000 will run behind them. They won't know what they're running for or why, but the anxious looks and the screams and the whimpers that are coming from the runners will be enough encouragement for the weak to run. For those a little stronger of fortitude, it raises a question mark. Why are you running? Why are you screaming? What is scaring you? Can I help? But clearly it doesn't raise that sort of feeling in the men in Bondi. Bloody disgusting. Anyway, look, wasn't there, hard to judge. But I've looked at a lot of video about this whole thing, and there are very few people running towards the problem. And the problem could have been solved and stopped on that escalator with the two Bollard boys. We don't know why or how that ended. We just know that they stood there, with a couple of Bollards. Didn't let him up onto that floor. Great. Maybe he ran back down and kept going along the floor he was on. That might well have been the case. Wouldn't it have been nice to have another real man with a bollard at the bottom of those escalators coming up? What would he have done then, do you think? This cowardly human being who was attacking women and running from men. What would he have done, do you think? And what should have the two Bollard boys done with their bollards? Throwing them at him from a distance isn't what they should have done. And they didn't, thankfully. That's not the way you use a bollard in an attack, just between you and the gatepost. There are other ways that you can do that. But, yeah. So, look, Singo's daughter, another media involvement in this. I think her name was Dawn Singleton, 25-year-old e-commerce assistant or something. Engaged to a police officer. If you are, and you probably are very, very well aware of the John Singleton rumours, I think around the Darrick, or is it Darrick Boys Home? The pedophilia accusations against him, and his best mate Ray Hadley, who has been alleged to be involved in a great many of these pedophilic marathons that took place with Singo and others from the media industry involving children from that boys' home. But Ray, of course, got in on the act too with the media, another connection. Singo rang him and said, can you find out? I believe my daughter Dawn might be one of the ones that have been stabbed. Can you find anything out? And he was able to get a hold of the police commissioner because Ray has that kind of sway. After all, he did have a son who was a policeman. I think he got caught for trafficking or dealing illicit substances. There was some breach of confidentiality and police protocols, and I think he got kicked out quietly. He may not have, but yeah, I haven't heard much about the honoured police son in a long time. But Ray Hadley's been hooked up with the top end of New South Wales police and to a certain extent Queensland police for a very long time. Another interesting media link to all of this. So I watch with great anticipation to see what's coming out. The cover-up has been funded. Chris Minns, the New South Wales Premier, has come out with $18 million today for the coronial inquest. And they're going to put on a new assistant coroner so that there will be no hold-up and the coroner can actually work on these particular cases and this particular horrible story, while the new deputy will go on and perform whatever autopsies come in outside of this for the next few weeks. This will be some huge investigation, huge coronial inquiry. I don't know why, but it's clear that $18 million needed to be given to someone. May I suggest that as it's going into a coronial inquest, well, we know where that's going, don't we? You see, in a false flag, they have to have a few things in place. They've got to have a venue that they can control. And they've certainly controlled that venue. They shut it down, nobody in or out for 2 days. Imagine what evidence they could do or get away and do away with in that time. Any evidence of makeup rooms in shops, any evidence of the story being put together, all gone under the guise of got to leave the bodies in situ so the coroner can have a look. So a lot of weird things going on with this, folks. A lot of weird things. And I think we're going to find there is a lot more weirdness to come about in the days and weeks ahead. Speaking of weirdness, the Eclipse, let's just go back to that. I haven't got the video for you, but I only saw it just before we came on air. But I saw a fascinating video of the Eclipse where the shadow over the sun didn't move off the sun. Okay, that's sort of how eclipses work. The shadow moves onto the sun and then moves off the sun the other side. Well, the exit of the moon didn't go as planned. If you can find any of the videos that were shot by Americans watching that eclipse live at the time, watch it as the moon is leaving the face of the sun. The shadow is leaving. It comes from the opposite direction, and the dark, if you like, the dark part of the eclipse doesn't move off the sun. It gets covered over. It gets covered over because you can tell it's being covered over because the crescent that appears is backwards. If the moon was, or the moon was shifting away from the sun as it should be, it would have been passing right to left. Instead, the new sun came around the front of the moon and passed left to right, right to left. The same way the moon was going. Can't happen like that. The crescent would be different, 100% different. A mirror image of what we actually saw, in fact. So there's something weird about that eclipse. Real weird. There are people saying that it is, in fact, 3 days of darkness predicted through the Bible. And those 3 rockets that NASA fired have got something to do with the artificial thing that's blocking out the darkness at the moment. I don't know what to say, folks. I haven't looked deeply enough into that one yet. I never discount anything that I hear because you simply can't until you've looked into it. And some of this stuff is incredulous to try and believe. But when you see really strange anomalies like the moon being eclipsed by a new sun rather than the moon moving off the sun, you've got to think that's a bit weird, don't you? So Go and seek those videos out for yourself. There are plenty of them online. And if you find some that show the thing going the other way, by all means, send them to me, because I haven't seen any of them yet. It's interesting that I expected the world to be flooded with Americans getting excited about an eclipse and their videos, but we haven't seen that much of it. I'm not saying that they haven't done it. It hasn't come past my feed, which I think is weird, because I have probably one of the most widely designed nets to catch interesting stories, and none of that's fallen into them. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. I guess it is what it is. Senator Babbitt has made some noises to the e-safety commissioner. Our e-safety commissioner has made a decision recently that many people are finding pretty hard to swallow. So Senator Babbitt has written a note, an open letter to Australia's e-safety commissioner regarding the censorship of Chris Elston, and that, well, let's explain what that's about. He writes to express his dismay that the commissioner is using their considerable powers as Australia's e-safety commissioner to shut down free speech online. The commissioner's demand that a tweet by Chris Elston be removed from the X social media platform for misgendering the individual known as Teddy Cook is, in my view, an outrageous misappropriation of your power. Using the words her and she to describe a biological female ought not to be a crime. Are people now to be censored for expressing biological fact? What a very good question. I am informed that Cook, who serves on a UN committee advising on treatment for people with gender dysphoria, has also worked closely with your office in drafting online safety reports. If this is correct, it raises questions regarding your impartiality and motivation to intercede on this matter. In the view of the enormous power you have to censor the God-given democratic rights of free Australian citizens to express themselves online, I ask that you clarify your relationship with the individual known as Teddy Cook and explain why this was not declared when your office decided to censor and intervene in this matter. Further, could you please explain how it is that misgendering a person is not permitted when it is in fact stating a biological truth? Free speech is the bedrock of a liberal democracy. Your powers to censor the speech and therefore suffocate the thoughts of the Australian people is a great responsibility and should be used sparingly for the most egregious of content, such as child pornography. Considering the censorship of Chris Elston, what reassurances can you give Australians that they're still free to believe, say, and think and articulate their views without running afoul of your office? Good on you, Ralph. I want to say congratulations to Senator Babbitt, a wonderful letter. I'll be really keen to hear what the reply is, do you think? Don't know that it's going to come. I don't know that it's going to come. All right. You might have seen a little bit of news over the weekend too. It sort of snuck and got quashed, pushed down, stood on, buried, ignored, all the things. And that's this news. New money. Now, the debt-free currency that the world has been talking about, particularly our world has been talking about, can't operate unless America is part of BRICS. Don't think for a moment that the handshake between Putin and Trump that you're seeing there is the handshake on BRICS. It's not. It was from their meeting in 2017. But the currency is a real deal. And the currency, I can tell you, looks like this. Thank you very much to Black Sheep in Tasmania for sending me this gold back. Now, this is the South Dakota $1 gold back. It has 1,000th of a troy ounce of 24 karat gold embedded in it. That gives that note an intrinsic value, unlike the plastic ones you're carrying around in your wallet right now. However, that note only has value if it is backed by gold. Now, the gold currency, or the gold standard, is where the American dollar is going. And if it is true that, and we talked about this the other day, that if Trump is is commander in chief, then yes, he can sign them up to BRICS. Biden, on the other hand, couldn't as president because he is an illegitimate president, as we all know. Now, these goldbacks are available to buy now, and at the moment they're more I guess they're more a novelty thing to hold on to or an investment thing to hold on to. I don't know that $1 investment is going to grow too much more. The thing that I wonder about, and Black Sheep may be able to explain this to me, and if not, the guys from Ainsley will probably be able to explain this to me. If you have 1,000th, and let's bring it up again, if you have 1,000th of a troy ounce of gold in that note, and gold goes through the roof, then doesn't that 1,000th of an ounce of gold valued at $1 there increase also? So does your $1 then become $2 or $1.50 or $1.25? I'm a little confused about how that will work, but there will be smarter minds than me who can help me figure that out. God love you. Please email me, carl@vofhq.com, if you can help me with that. That would be spectacular. Also, if oh no, I won't get you to do that. Let's keep going down the list of things I wanted to show you. There was, I think, one other thing I needed to let you know today. Bill Gates has been out talking about cows again. Get a load of this. Bill Gates says that a cow puts out more pollution than a car. Okay, Bill, I'll lock myself in the garage with a cow overnight, and you lock yourself in the garage with a running car overnight, and we'll meet for breakfast in the morning, discuss the results. I really do like that. That is my kind of thing. All right, folks, I've been going nearly an hour. These things are not going to eat themselves. And they've gone cold. They come in hot, like really, really hot. I wish you could smell this. I wish you could smell it. This is just one of the specialties that comes when you come to the Lake Oberon estate. You'll have to ask Tony to make them specially for you because I don't think he puts them on a menu. He might, but my God, they are magnificent. The pizza, which I'm not going to show you, but because I can't really reach, it's on a board and all that. The pizza, homemade, absolutely magnificent. It's a veggie sort of thing that I'm eating, and it is magnificent. I've had 2 chunks of that, and some of the best chips I've had in a long, long time. So if you are in any way, shape, or form needing a venue for anything, a large event, a smaller event, a family event, a corporate event, a business event, a conference, a retreat, a getaway, this is the place. Please call them. Give them a call. Find out what they can do for you, because these folks really know how to make sure that your little break away with them is very relaxing, very friendly, and very fulfilling. So please, if you ever decide you need to get away, consider Lake Oberon Estate and the wonderful Alvarez family who have looked after me just so wonderfully for the last few days. I can't thank them enough. All right, folks, going to love you and leave you tonight. Tomorrow I am on the road. Now, I was going to go a different way. I have to go to Canberra. So I was going to go a different way, and it turns out that way might be a bit too curly for the bus, a bit too narrow in places. So I've taken some advice, and I won't be going back to Sydney. I am, in fact, going via Cowra. Do you remember Cowra, folks? Cowra, from memory, was an immigration hub in Australia in the late 40s and 50s, where new Australians came if they didn't already have a place to live or a job to go to. In many cases, they were sent to Cowra, where they were given skills and then sent, in a lot of cases, to the Snowy Mountains, to the Snowy Mountain scheme. There were a lot of families who were left in Cowra, immigrant families who were left in Cowra. But more interestingly is the accommodation that these new Australians were given. I'm hopeful. I haven't been to Cowra in 25 years. But 25 years ago, I remember stopping with Col Elliott, the comedian, funnily enough. I was Col Elliott's tour manager at the time. I remember doing a show in Cowra, and we went and had a look at this museum. And I'm determined, if it's still there, to go back and show it to you tomorrow. So if that is the case, we'll get a little bit of a look at what immigrants could expect when they came to Australia back in the 50s. And then we might just compare that today with what they get when they arrive on a boat from nowhere, unannounced, and traipse their way into a community in far Western Australia, far northwestern Australia, or even a bit further south. They are dropping in on us on a daily basis, folks, and our government is asleep. Our government hasn't funded our Navy patrol boats, who would ordinarily be picketing that sort of sea lane that these people are using. They would be picked up and taken back to Indonesia. They wouldn't be brought to Australia. But oh no, we've now got a Labor government back in charge. So they've defunded those Navy boats. There are more of them needing maintenance and unable to go to sea than there are able to go to sea. It's that simple. They've also got crew problems. A lot of people in the military have gone down sick unexpectedly, really sick. Some have died, quite a lot, in fact. But we don't get told any of that. We don't get given the military figures on heart disease, on myocarditis, on pericarditis. We don't get any of that. That's well hidden from us. But trust me, it's happening. I know people in there, they're telling me it's happening. And it's happening a lot. Military pilots now are also under threat. Why? Because they're dropping like flies. So why? Well, we know why. Are we going to get to the bottom of it? Are the military, the good people in the military, going to wake up to it and stand up for us as well when they see their colleagues dropping like flies? I hope so. Have you spoken to your children in the military about it, or your friends in the military about it? Have you asked them for their help? We have to have military help to fix this, guys. We have to have the military working with us, the people, and not them, the proletariat, politicians. We have to get the military. And they're not letting us in the gate to talk to their bosses. So we must talk to them individually. Anytime you see an acting service member, although it's rare you see them on the streets these days in their uniform, they are told not to wear it. Why? Oh, because some bastard with a knife might want to plunge it into your chest, or you might get abused for protecting Australians. It'd only be the weak that do the abusing. Our military men and women are some of the toughest in the world, some of the bravest in the world. And right now we need their bravery. We need their honesty. We need them to step up for us. If you're part of the military and watching this, contact me. Let me know if you need help. We can help. But we need you to stand up. We need you to go back and look at the oath that you probably didn't take, but others before you did, to protect and serve the people. They've changed the oath that our young men and women take these days. But the sentiment doesn't change. We need you to look after us. We need you to come to our aid when the judiciary, when the police, and every other avenue we try is blocked to us through corrupt means. The only solution is military. We've been hearing that for years. And years down the track, it is crystal clear to me that it is 100% right. We need the military. We can't do this by ourselves, otherwise there'll just be another bloodbath. And we will be supplying the blood. I hope you have a good night, folks. Tomorrow is going to be an interesting day. If I can find the museum in Cowra tomorrow, I'll do a little spot from there. And we'll see what happens by the time I get to Canberra tomorrow night. We might have a wander around Epic and relive a few nights. But Canberra tomorrow night, and then we'll be heading towards Victoria at some stage very shortly after that. So if you're looking to catch up, let me know. I might be able to swing through your town. If you're somewhere between Canberra and Albury, happy to pop in and have a coffee or somewhere along the way if that's what you're up for. happy to meet you for lunch somewhere in a town if I'm going through it, and possibly have dinner in a town if I'm staying overnight in it. You've got a bit of an idea where I'll be. Albury, I'll probably go along the river until I get to Echuca, and at some point I'll be heading down through Bendigo over to Denali and then down through Maribor to Ballarat. And that's the plan at this stage. Best laid plans and all. You know how that works. I was talking to Darren Bergworth today. Who knows? Could end up in Melbourne yet. Anything's possible. Anyway, folks, you have yourself a great night. And from the honeymoon suite of the Lake Oberon estate, can I wish you a very good night and keep away from the dickheads on the roads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
All right, I'm back. Daniel, I just saw your thing. You're in Flory. You need to email me, carl@vofhq.com. I'll come find you. That easy. All right. carl@vofhq.com, and I'll catch up. If you're in Canberra, and Jindalee, I haven't seen Jindalee in the chat for a little while. Jindalee, I think, is around Canberra. Wonderful human being, mate. If you're watching this, I'm in Epic for, well, at least one night, maybe 2 or 3. We'll see what happens, but I'd love to catch up, shake your hand again, mate, and maybe go out, have a quiet meal somewhere. There are a few people in Canberra who'd like to catch up. We might go out to a pub in Braddon and have a meal there, a lunch or a dinner at some stage. If it's not, in the next couple of days, then it will be when I come back. I will be spending a couple of days in Canberra on the way back after we leave Wangaratta after our last Ainsley night. So it could be then too. But I'm very keen to catch up with all you folks in Canberra. So Daniel, email me, carl@vofhq.com. I'll have some sort of access to a set of wheels. It probably won't be the Mustang, but I might be able to find you. So if I can, I'll certainly come and try and find you, mate. So it'd be good to catch up, shake your hand. You never need to joke about my cup size, mate. I've got a C. I'm trying to get to a B. It'd be lovely to get to an A. But if I'm going to come back here and eat stuff like this, that ain't going to happen. Have a good night, folks. Love you.